welcome to the Sunny Raw Kitchen Live. We're having another episode of Raw in a Flash, and today we'll be making a really yummy raw soup. Again, we'll be featuring the Omni blender. I've already mentioned it on my blog and in other videos, so I invite you to go and check it out. But just to tell you quickly, the Omni blender is a 3 horsepower blender that does a great job like other similar blenders in the market, except that it's considerably cheaper at $250. So I strongly recommend checking it out, because I know for myself, when I took that step to get a better high power blender, if I would have liked to have that option, that's would have been much quicker to save my pennies. So the Omni blender. And just to tell you very quickly, Don and I have been eating mostly raw for 12 years now, and something that's been, from the very beginning, something that's been a big staple has been raw soups. You've heard about smoothies. You just throw a bunch of fruits and preferably some greens, and you get yourself, a beverage that's very quick to prepare and super nutritious. Well, raw soup for us, it's really a savory smoothie. So you can throw a bunch of veggies in there, and we strongly recommend putting an avocado to make it nice and creamy. And there you have it, a quick meal that's, again, super nutritious. And I mean, it's hard to beat in terms of time preparation. So every single night we have pretty much a raw soup. So we've had lots of phases. We started off throwing everything in the blender pretty much. And what we discovered is that we're having a variation of the same green mush every night, and our interest eventually kind of moved away from that, or it wasn't as appetizing. So then I discovered that if you actually feature just 1 or 2 vegetable mostly, then you'll have something much more interesting, like a cream of tomato soup, or a zucchini soup, or a celery soup. So that's been a very valuable little piece of information that has made eating raw soup so much more interesting. So tonight we'll be having, actually it's still the afternoon, but it's getting clouded over, and actually we might hear the thunder during the recording, so the weather is turning right now. So I'll be featuring this Cucumber Dill Soup, which is actually, I'd say we have it a couple of times a week, because it's just, so quick, and it's very refreshing, and it's very alkaline. Cucumber is super alkaline. I make a couple of variations, and I'll tell you about it when we get to that. So, alright, so the first thing that I always do when I start a soup, besides getting the container ready, is put the avocado in. So I always like to put soft fruit or vegetables first in the blender, because that way the blades will run smoothly, and you won't have any big pieces like a piece of carrot or celery or something like that stuck underneath. So everything gets to blend very smoothly. So I always put avocado first whenever I make a raw soup. So we're going to use usually it's a half a medium avocado. That's pretty much what we always put. And I always check for avocados, so it's very quick, just with a spoon like this. I turn the avocado over, and I make sure that it doesn't have any of that dark discoloration that you sometimes find when the avocados are super fresh. This one doesn't have any, but if you find any of those black spots, do remove them, because it's actually rancid oil. Or it's, when people press on the avocado to see if they're ripe, it bruises the vegetable, or actually it's a fruit, I think, and yeah, and that's not good to consume at all. We know that I have a sensitive digestive system, and whenever I would eat avocado like this, I was in such pain. It took me a while to figure out the culprit, but now I do know that. And our dear Kylo, that passed away not so long ago, he loved avocado, but whenever there was those dark spots, he wouldn't eat them either. So that's another good indication that you ought to stay away from that. So got our avo in there. Next I'm going to put the cucumber. So The great thing about having a high power blender is that you don't have to worry about cutting everything really small. So I can put pretty big chunks in there and the blender is going to do the job just fine. So some cucumber, some celery, some green onion and garlic clove. Okay, for salt we like to use miso. So miso, I know it's controversial, miso is technically cooked at the beginning of the process, but then usually it's soy or rice or barley or chickpea. There's different types of miso. Then there's a fermentation process that develops, and then new enzymes get to occur. So I feel that it's a live product, so I feel good about using it. So what we do, we use the miso, and then it's not quite enough, we find, so you could at this point add more salt, or what we prefer to do at the very end, we like to break up some nori. So I'm sure you've seen, you know, the nori that you use normally for making sushi. We just take a sheet and then break that up into our soup bowl, and then that gives us the extra salt and also the other trace minerals. So we love to do that. So if you don't want to do the seaweed thing, you might need to add a bit more salt. And then some parsley. And by now, probably the ingredient, the exact amounts are scrolling down the screen. So parsley, and then the dill, I'm gonna keep for later, and I'll explain to you why. So I've got pretty much all my ingredients here, and sometimes what I like to do, and actually this recipe is in my Delightfully Raw book, and in the Delightfully Raw, what I do, I put about 2 cups of tightly packed lettuce, and that's a really nice way to get some extra greens. Let's see, I'm almost forgetting, just a little bit of acidity is really nice in the soup, so just a teaspoon or so. You don't want to go too much because that can easily overpower the rest of the ingredients. And the last thing I'm going to do is add some water. So I'd say for several years what we used to do is use cold water and then blend the mixture and then warm it up on the stove at a low temperature, like low to medium, and then actually it was Don's job. You would have to constantly stir for 5 or 10 minutes because you don't want any of the enzymes at the bottom to get damaged by the heat. So that's a technique that's good for warming up your soup, especially in the winter time. It's nice to have something that's warm and comforting. So you can do that, but something that we've learned since we've been on the road is that actually you can use water that you've boiled and add that to your veggies, because the veggies usually come straight out of the fridge, so they're cold. So when you're adding the hot water with the cold veggies, it actually comes to a lukewarm temperature, which is just perfect. The trick with this is that the density of the veggies is different. You know, if you make a tomato soup, for instance, you won't need a lot of hot water because it will quickly change the temperature of the whole thing, because there's not much to the tomatoes. So it's something you have to experiment with. So as a general rule, I like to start with less water. Then I'm going to stop it and test it for the temperature. And at that point, I'm going to add more water until the right consistency is reached. But then I can choose to add either more hot water or cold water depending on where I'm at in terms of temperature. Okay, so it sounds complicated, but really as you get the hang of it, it will come naturally. Alright, so I'm going to put that hot water in there, and the amount, again, you know, it really depends on the consistency that you like, and now we just want enough to get everything blending smoothly, because again, I don't want to be cooking the vegetables. Okay, and then with the Omni you have different cycles, so 35, 60 or 90 seconds, and you can also do it manually, you know, low, medium and high. So I think I'm going to start, I'll do just the 35 just to get it going and get a sense of the temperature. Alright, so have a look. Also, depending on the size of your avocado, because they're not always the same, so you might need, that will also affect the consistency of the soup, right? So that will also determine how much water you want to put in. So I'm just going to have a quick test. So you can use a bit more hot water. And in terms of consistency, it's doing pretty good. So let's see, I'm going to add maybe a half a cup or so. And then at this point, I'm going to add some dill, because I like to add it afterwards, and then I'm just going to run it just for a short time, because I like to keep some of the herb intact in there. So put that dill in. I'm just going to run it on low just for a few seconds. Okay, there we go. And oh, I should show you here. So I don't know if you can see, but I've already broken up some nori in there. So, and sometimes we like to put wakame as well. Although, you know, with what happened in Japan now, we don't feel very safe about the wakame anymore. Now we're basically just using mostly nori that is certified raw and organic, and that has no radiation. Alright. There we go. So let's see. Oh, and the special touch is to put some freshly ground black pepper on top, and that makes it, you know, extra delicious. So there you have it, a cucumber dill soup that's totally raw, and that was super fast to prepare. And I guess that's it for now. So I think I forgot to tell you, but some of you might already know. So I'm Carmella Soleil of the Sunny Raw Kitchen. And thanks for joining me today for another Raw in a Flash episode, and I'll see you very soon.